The late afternoon light settled softly over Bird Rock, brushing the coastline of La Jolla with a warm, gold-pink glow. Inside Amanda Ellington's home, an elegant coastal cottage with glass walls facing the ocean, the air carried the quiet luxury of a celebration meant to honor a lifetime of work. Guests mingled beneath hanging lanterns and soft jazz, raising glasses to the woman who had just sold her consulting firm for nearly $5 million. At 70, Amanda still had the poise of someone who understood the world intimately, its beauty, its dangers, its shifting loyalties. She moved through the crowd with the grace of a practiced host. Old colleagues congratulated her. Neighbors offered flowers. Friends hugged her tightly, many whispering the same sentiment. You earned this. Amanda smiled, thanking each one, though her mind floated in several directions at once. Retirement was meant to feel liberating. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure what came next. Near the dining room, Daniel and Sophia arrived, her son and daughter-in-law, fashionably late as always. Daniel kissed his mother's cheek. Sophia embraced her with exaggerated warmth, her perfume sweet enough to sting. Their daughter, Valerie, drifted toward the dessert table, already bored by the adult chatter. Everything seemed harmless, ordinary, festive, until Amanda stepped briefly behind the kitchen archway to collect her note cards for the speech she was about to give. Through the narrow gap between the doorway and the wine cabinet, she saw Sophia standing alone at the bar counter. Sophia's back was turned, her posture rigid, deliberate. In her hand, she held the champagne flute that Amanda recognized immediately, the one with the tiniest chip near the rim. A flaw so subtle only someone who used that glass regularly would know it existed. Amanda froze, her breath caught in her throat. Sophia uncapped a small, opaque bottle, something Amanda had never seen before, and tilted a few drops into the flute. She stirred the champagne with a cocktail stir, glanced over her shoulder, then set the bottle deep inside her handbag. Amanda didn't move. She didn't gasp. She didn't step forward. She simply watched. A quiet, wordless acknowledgement passed through her. This was intentional. Sophia picked up the glass, took a calming breath, and walked toward the patio, toward Amanda. Amanda stepped into view as if nothing had happened. Her expression was serene, almost warm. Sophia approached her with the overly bright smile she used whenever she wanted something. "Amanda," she said sweetly, "let me bring this to you before your speech." It seemed fitting to toast with your favorite glass. Amanda accepted it with steady hands, her mind razor-sharp behind her calm exterior. "Thank you, Sophia. That's thoughtful of you." Across the room, Teresa Marquez, Sophia's mother, was chatting with two neighbors, waving her hands animatedly as she told a story about a holiday trip. She reached for a glass on a nearby tray, but Amanda shifted subtly, placing the flute Sophia had given her next to the one Teresa had just picked up. It looked accidental, natural, almost clumsy, but Amanda knew exactly what she was doing. As Sophia turned to greet another guest, Amanda lifted Teresa's untouched flute and placed it near her own note cards on the podium. Then, without hesitation, she picked up the poisoned glass, the chipped one, and passed it toward Teresa with a gentle smile. "Here, Teresa, use this one. I think someone moved yours." Not even a flicker of hesitation in Amanda's eyes, not even a tremor in her voice. Teresa accepted it cheerfully. "Oh, thank you, dear." Amanda watched her take a sip, watched her laugh at her own joke, watched the color drain slowly from her face, like a tide receding too quickly. Teresa staggered, clutching the edge of the table. Glass slipped from her hand, shattering across the hardwood floor. Conversation stopped. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Within seconds, she collapsed. Chaos erupted. Someone called 911. Another knelt beside her. Valerie screamed. Guests backed away in shock. Daniel rushed forward, shouting for help. Sophia dropped to her knees beside her mother, her panic loud, dramatic, performative, far too performative for Amanda to believe a word of it. When the paramedics arrived and lifted Teresa onto the stretcher, Sophia clung to her hand, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel wrapped an arm around his wife, guiding her toward the ambulance. Amanda followed silently, her face unreadable, her emotions tightly caged inside her chest. Because she knew, without question, this was only the beginning. The ambulance doors slammed shut with a metallic thud, and Amanda climbed into the passenger seat beside a paramedic who immediately began relaying Teresa's vitals. The siren wailed as they rushed down Torrey Pines Road toward Scripps Memorial La Jolla, the flashing lights bouncing off storefront windows and darkening palm trees. Amanda kept her gaze fixed on Teresa's still, pale face. The older woman's breathing was shallow, her pulse uneven. Every few seconds, a monitor beeped sharply, slicing through the tense silence. When they reached the emergency department, nurses whisked Teresa through the sliding glass doors and into a treatment bay. Sophia and Daniel arrived moments later, breathless, faces streaked with sweat and panic. It was the kind of panic that drew attention, loud, chaotic, uncontained. Amanda watched them quietly from a plastic chair against the wall, her fingers interlaced, her expression unreadable. A physician in blue scrubs approached the family. "We've run the initial labs," he said. "There are signs of toxic plant alkaloids in her system. We're stabilizing her now." Sophia blinked as if she hadn't heard correctly. Toxic what? Someone must have mishandled the food, maybe the shrimp, or the champagne, or, her voice spiraled, searching for innocent explanations that arrived too quickly and too forcefully. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out. Mom, you should come home with us tonight. It's late. You shouldn't be alone." The words were gentle, but the tone, low, pressured, carried something else. Urgency, convenience, control. Amanda lifted her eyes to him. "Thank you, Daniel, but no. I'll head home once the doctors update us." Sophia turned toward her sharply. "But you shouldn't be by yourself. This whole thing, it could be dangerous. What if someone targeted the event? What if they were after you?" The statement was dramatic, too dramatic, and for a split second, Sophia seemed to realize she'd overplayed her hand. Her face flushed, and she quickly added, "I'm just worried, that's all." Amanda nodded slowly but said nothing. She watched the way Sophia's fingers trembled, not with grief, but with agitation. She noticed Daniel avoiding her eyes every time the doctor mentioned toxin. She saw the way the couple exchanged silent glances, hurried and anxious, as if calculating outcomes they weren't prepared for. Hours passed before Teresa was moved to a monitored room. She remained unconscious but stable. The doctor assured them she was responding to treatment, though recovery would take time. It was nearly midnight when Amanda finally stepped outside into the cool coastal air. Sophia wrapped an arm around Daniel for balance, though she didn't look unsteady. She looked rattled, cornered. "Call if you need anything," Daniel said. "Really, Mom, you should stay with us tonight." Amanda offered him a thin smile. "I'll be fine." She walked to her car alone. The drive home was quiet, the roads nearly empty. Streetlights cast long, pale shadows across the pavement as she wound through the familiar neighborhood. Yet nothing felt familiar now. Her house, usually warm and full of light during gatherings, greeted her with stillness. Inside, she slipped off her shoes and set her keys on the kitchen counter. The faint scent of champagne lingered from earlier. She looked at the empty glass tray, the memory of the chipped flute, Sophia's careful tilt of the bottle. The swirl of liquid flashed sharply in her mind. Amanda sat down at her dining table and began assembling the quiet pieces of the evening, like a puzzle she had been unknowingly collecting for years. Daniel and Sophia's mounting debt, their repeated requests for short-term loans. Sophia's offhand comments about one day inheriting something substantial, the sudden urgency to have Amanda stay with them, the stolen glances in the ER. None of it felt random anymore. A cold clarity settled over her, steady and precise. For the first time that night, Amanda whispered into the silence of her home, "Something is very, very wrong." The house was silent when Amanda returned, silent in a way that felt heavier than usual, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The ocean beyond the windows rolled in slow, muffled waves, a rhythmic pulse that barely reached her ears. She set her purse on the entryway table and walked toward the living room, turning on only a single lamp. Warm light filled the space, soft but insufficient to calm the storm running beneath her ribs. She sat at her desk near the wide window facing the water. The moon cast a faint trail across the sea, silver and unbroken. It was the kind of night she used to find comfort in. Tonight, it only emphasized the solitude. Amanda pulled open the drawer where she kept household files, bank statements, loan records, tax documents. She had always been meticulous, organized, careful. It was a habit that had built her company and, ultimately, earned her the fortune she had just secured. Now that same habit guided her hands as she sorted through envelopes, one by one, looking for anything that tugged at her memory. What she found didn't surprise her. Not really. Just 3 months ago, Daniel had asked her for help with a minor cash flow issue involving their Carmel Valley home. He had mentioned rising property taxes, unexpected medical bills, credit card balances. Amanda had wired him $12,000 that week without questioning it. She'd done that many times over the years, small amounts meant to relieve their stress, not realizing she was participating in a sinking ship. She opened a folder labeled Family Assistance. It wasn't a formal category, just a place she'd created years ago to track what she gave her son. Inside were sticky notes, bank confirmations, and handwritten reminders. As she tallied the numbers, the total crept higher and higher until the weight of it settled fully in her chest. $147,800, given over the course of 5 years. Quietly, without expectation, she leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. And that wasn't even the worst part. She turned to the digital files on her laptop. Screens glowed blue in the dim room as she opened a set of old text messages Daniel had forwarded to her years ago. They weren't meant for her originally. They were exchanges between him and Sophia, captured during a family phone upgrade. Amanda had skimmed them at the time, thinking the tone was simply youthful frustration. Now, she read them with a different lens. One message from Sophia stood out. "Your mom has assets she doesn't even use. Eventually it'll come to us. We just need to be patient." Another, "Future inheritance means future freedom. You shouldn't feel guilty." Another, more recent, "Once she retires, things will shift. I'm tired of waiting for the life we deserve." Amanda closed her eyes. The alignment of the night's events, with the words in front of her, narrowed into an unmistakable point. Teresa collapsing, the toxicology results, Sophia's frantic, overcompensating performance at the hospital, Daniel's insistence that she come stay at their home. The two of them exchanging looks that weren't grief or fear, but calculation. Amanda reopened Daniel's most recent financial statement, the one he'd shared when asking for help with refinancing. He hadn't meant to include the second page, but he had. And now she saw it clearly. Credit card debt, $78,300. Second mortgage, maxed. HELIC, near default. Annual income, unstable. And the most damning line of all, projected insolvency in 12 months. She stared at the screen until the numbers blurred into a single truth. Daniel and Sophia weren't drowning by accident. They were drowning because of choices. Choices that carried consequences they weren't willing to face. And tonight, they had tried to shift those consequences onto her. Amanda closed the laptop gently and sat still, letting the weight of clarity settle over her. The poisoning wasn't random. It wasn't mistaken identity. It wasn't a party mishap. It was intentional, and whoever had meant to harm her was still out there, counting on her to stay blind. She opened her eyes to the dark, quiet room and whispered to herself, this was no accident. Morning crept slowly over Bird Rock, washing Amanda's house in a pale, early light. She hadn't slept much. The ocean outside her window stirred restlessly, and so did her thoughts. She reheated yesterday's coffee, letting its bitterness settle on her tongue as she mentally replayed every detail from the night before. By 8 o'clock, she heard a familiar knock. 3 taps, a pause, then 2 more. Daniel's pattern. Amanda set her mug down, smoothed the sleeve of her robe, and opened the door. Daniel stood there holding a glossy white pastry box from a boutique bakery in Carmel Valley, the kind that sold croissants for $9 each. He offered a smile that didn't quite touch his eyes. Mom, I thought you might not feel like cooking this morning. He lifted the box slightly. Figured I'd bring breakfast. Amanda stepped aside to let him in. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he replied, moving toward the kitchen with rehearsed familiarity. After everything that happened last night, I was worried. He set the box down and opened cabinets, pulling out plates the way a son would. But his movements were stiff, too careful. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the slow hum of the refrigerator. Eventually, Daniel cleared his throat. Mom, he began, tone soft but measured. Have you thought about, I don't know, maybe taking some time somewhere safer? Amanda raised an eyebrow. Safer? He nodded, quickly, eager. Yeah, just until things calm down. I know you love this house, but after what happened to Teresa, it's clear someone might have been targeting the party. It could happen again. There it was, the shift, the same carefully constructed narrative Sophia had used at the hospital. Amanda remained still, hands folded on the counter. Daniel continued. Sophia and I did some research last night. There's a place in La Jolla Crest Senior Residences. It's really nice, secure, staffed 24 hours a day. He said it as if the plan had already been made, as if his job now was simply to deliver the update. Amanda's voice stayed calm, unshaken. And how did you even get to the idea that I need to be in a retirement community? Daniel hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but enough. Because we care about you, Mom. We want you protected, and being alone in this house isn't safe. Anyone could break in. Or maybe someone was trying to send a message at the party. Amanda leaned back slightly. A retirement community is a big decision. He swallowed hard. We've already booked a tour for you, this afternoon. The words landed with the weight of a verdict. Amanda watched him carefully. His fingers tapped against the pastry box. His jaw clenched and unclenched. Behind all his polished concern, fear flickered, a fear he clearly didn't expect her to notice. She let the quiet stretch before speaking. Daniel, before I let anyone make decisions about my living arrangements, I need to finish updating my will. His face drained of color. Your will. Yes, she said evenly. I started revising it. I plan to finalize everything with Richard this week. Daniel stared at her, stunned. His breath hitched as if he had been punched. Why? Why now? Retirement changes things, she answered. It's natural to reevaluate. He opened his mouth to argue, but his phone vibrated insistently. Sophia's name flashed across the screen. He stepped aside and answered. Amanda didn't need to hear Sophia's actual words. The sharp tone, the rapid pacing, the way Daniel's eyes darted nervously around the room told her enough. After a tense exchange, he lowered the phone. Sophia wants you to come to our house today, he said. She thinks it'll help you decompress. Amanda studied him, the strain in his voice, the sweat beading just above his collar, the panicked flicker in his eyes when she mentioned the will. Everything about him revealed a truth he didn't intend to show. He was terrified. Tell Sophia, I'll think about it, Amanda said. Daniel forced a nod, but his composure was slipping. He gathered the pastry box as if needing something to hold on to, then hurried toward the door. As it clicked shut behind him, Amanda stood motionless in the quiet kitchen. She now knew with absolute certainty Daniel and Sophia weren't just worried, they were scrambling. And the reason for that panic was written clearly across her son's face when she uttered one word: Will. The next afternoon, the sun hung high over downtown San Diego, painting the glass towers in shades of white and mirrored blue. Amanda stepped out of the parking elevator and walked toward the brick and steel building where Richard Hale's law office occupied the 12th floor. She had known Richard for nearly 20 years. He'd handled her business contracts, her first estate plan, and even the paperwork for her company's sale. If anyone could help her now, it was him. The receptionist greeted her warmly and led her down the hallway. Richard was already standing at the door of his office, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, the kind of man whose presence alone conveyed precision and authority. "Amanda," he said, offering a firm handshake before ushering her inside. "You sounded urgent on the phone. Sit. Tell me everything." She didn't waste time. As soon as she settled into the leather chair, she recounted every detail. Teresa collapsing, the toxicology report that mentioned plant alkaloids, Sophia's exaggerated theatrics, Daniel's insistent attempts to get her to stay with them, and, of course, the moment she had watched Sophia pour something into her champagne flute. She spoke evenly without embellishment, but Richard's eyebrows tightened with each new piece of information. When she finished, he leaned back, tapping a pen lightly against his notebook. "This isn't just concerning. Amanda, it's a potential felony. Poisoning? Insurance motive? Behavioral pressure? This is serious." "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I came to you." Richard nodded, his tone shifting into the calm decisiveness she had always admired. "We need to talk about protection, legal protection. Your son and daughter-in-law, given the situation you've described, may attempt to argue that you're no longer capable of managing your affairs." Amanda exhaled slowly. "Conservatorship?" "Yes," Richard confirmed. "California law allows family members to petition for conservatorship if they claim you're mentally compromised. If they succeed, you lose control of your finances and your autonomy. And based on their behavior, I'd say that's a real risk." Amanda felt the weight of his words settle on her shoulders. Not surprising, but sobering. Richard continued, "There's another angle, too. They may attempt to manufacture evidence that you're forgetful, confused, or emotionally unstable. Something as small as misplaced keys or repeated questions can be weaponized in court if framed strategically." Amanda straightened in her chair. "So what do we do?" Richard's expression sharpened. "We fight smart. Quiet but smart." He opened a folder already prepared for her. "First, we set up a revocable living trust. It moves your assets, your home, your accounts, your post-sale funds, into a protected structure. You'll remain trustee with full control, but it'll be much harder for anyone to seize or manipulate." Amanda nodded. That step alone steadied her breathing. "Second," he said, "we update your will. Clean, modern, airtight. This lets us designate exactly what Daniel receives and make sure Sophia has no legal foothold." She didn't flinch. "She won't get a dime." Richard gave a small approving smile. "Third," he continued, "I want you to document everything, every conversation, every text, every unexpected visit. Your calm, consistent behavior will undermine any future claim that you're unstable. Amanda reached for the pen he offered. I can do that. And last, he said, lowering his voice slightly, I'm bringing in a private investigator for you. Someone discreet. Someone who knows how to trace financial inconsistencies, hidden insurance policies, unusual transactions, things that are often missed. Amanda felt a long, steady breath move through her chest. Good. Richard closed the folder. This is the beginning of a legal counterattack. Not a dramatic one, but a precise one. They've made the first move. Now it's our turn. Amanda stood, feeling the quiet strength beneath her ribs shift into place. Thank you, Richard. He walked her to the door. Amanda, listen carefully. Whatever they're planning, they're underestimating you. That's their first mistake. She gave him a cool, knowing smile. And their last. Amanda stepped into the hallway with her bag in hand, her posture straighter than it had been in days. She had come seeking clarity. She left with a plan, a quiet, devastating plan. By the time Amanda returned home from Richard Hale's office, the late afternoon sun had begun to cast long shadows across the quiet streets of Bird Rock. The ocean breeze that usually comforted her carried a different charge now, an alertness, a chill that seemed to whisper, move quickly. She unlocked her front door with deliberate care and stepped inside, the weight of Richard's warnings echoing through her. The first thing she did was call a security company. Within an hour, a technician arrived, a young man in a Navy uniform who spoke efficiently and without judgment. Amanda walked him through the house, pointing out the entry points, the sliding glass doors facing the patio, the kitchen side door, the upstairs balcony. He installed high-resolution cameras at each location, motion sensors in the hallways, and a silent alarm beside Amanda's bed that would notify both the company and the police if pressed. When he finished testing the system, he turned to her. You'll get alerts on your phone. If anything looks suspicious, call us right away. Amanda nodded. I will. After he left, she replaced the old deadbolts with reinforced locks she'd picked up earlier at the hardware store. The metallic clicks echoed through the house like punctuation marks, small declarations of autonomy, each one a line drawn firmly between safety and threat. She moved next to her desk, where the late sunlight carved geometric shapes across the wood. A folder labeled estate planning, updated 2025, sat waiting. Amanda opened it slowly, running her fingers along the crisp, new documents Richard had prepared. The revocable living trust was now fully in place. Her home, the funds from the company's sale, her investments, even the small beach cabin she rarely visited were all transferred into the trust. Amanda Ellington retained full authority as sole trustee, and no one, not Daniel, not Sophia, not a court clerk who'd never met her, could access or control it without her explicit consent. She flipped to the next document, the updated will. For years, Amanda had intended to leave Daniel a substantial inheritance. She wasn't naive. She understood that money influenced relationships. But she had always believed Daniel would handle responsibility with maturity, perhaps not flawlessly, but honorably enough. Now, the numbers told a different story. Daniel Ellington, annual distribution of $40,000, a modest sum, enough to keep him afloat, perhaps enough to soften the future, but certainly not enough to reward recklessness or entitlement. Amanda read the line twice before moving on. Sophia Ellington, no distribution, no rights, no claims. The words sat on the page like cold granite, not vindictive, not emotional, just necessary. The remainder of Amanda's estate, everything that had taken a lifetime to build, was earmarked for community causes she believed in, scholarships for low-income students, support programs for women returning to the workforce, and a local foundation that funded after-school mentorship. It felt right, clean, purposeful. She signed each page with a steady hand. Her signature looked exactly like it always had, confident loops, deliberate slants, but tonight it felt heavier, as if it carried an unspoken promise. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair and listened to the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant crash of waves. The house, newly fortified, felt less like a refuge and more like a command center. Her phone buzzed with new security alerts as the cameras synced to the system. Amanda watched the screen for a moment, then set it face down on the desk. Richard had been right. This was no time for hesitation. Whatever Daniel and Sophia were planning was already in motion, whether clumsily or quietly. And Amanda, for the first time, understood the urgency settling around her like a tightening ring. She wasn't just preparing. She was racing against their desperation, against their entitlement, against a threat that had already knocked once on her door. And she intended to stay one step ahead. 2 days later, a thin layer of coastal fog drifted over Bird Rock, softening the outlines of the neighborhood as morning settled in. Amanda was in the living room, sorting a stack of documents into carefully labeled folders, when she noticed a pair of shadows moving across her front porch. She didn't need to look twice to recognize the silhouettes. Daniel and Sophia. She took a slow breath, placed the folder down, and opened the door before they had the chance to knock. Daniel stood with his hands shoved awkwardly into his pockets, shoulders tense, while Sophia wore a smile so forced it trembled at the edges. "Mom," Daniel began, "we wanted to talk. About everything. About the future." Amanda stepped aside politely. "Then come in." They sat in the living room, Daniel on the edge of the sofa, Sophia perched beside him like she was trying to hold the scene together by sheer willpower. But Amanda could see right through it. The tightness in Daniel's jaw, the way Sophia's gaze kept darting around the room, as if expecting cameras or hidden witnesses. She wasn't wrong. Sophia clasped her hands with exaggerated calm. "Amanda, we think it's best if we all start planning ahead. These last few days have been emotional, with Teresa's collapse and all, and we just want to make sure you're safe." Amanda watched her carefully. "Safe from what, Sophia?" Sophia blinked, briefly thrown off balance. "Oh, life can be unpredictable. Stress, falls, mistakes. We've been talking, and Daniel and I feel it would be better for everyone if you come stay with us, at least until things settle down." Daniel nodded too quickly. "It's temporary, Mom, just so we can keep an eye on you." Amanda maintained a serene expression. "And what exactly do you imagine I need to be kept an eye on for?" This time, neither of them had a ready answer. Sophia cleared her throat. We want to help. You've been forgetful lately, tired, and it might be time to consider putting some plans in place for the future." Amanda let the silence stretch. She wanted them to feel it. Then she said, gently but clearly, "My lawyer will be sending both of you the updated documents soon." It was a single sentence, but it detonated in the room. Daniel's posture stiffened as if bracing for impact. Sophia's veneer cracked instantly. Her eyes widened, her breath hitched, and a faint tremor appeared in her voice. "Updated documents?" she asked. "Yes," Amanda replied, still calm. "Estate documents, trust details, everything you'll need to understand the plan moving forward." The color on Sophia's cheeks shifted, first pale, then flushed. Her fingers dug into Daniel's sleeve. A silent command he didn't seem to know how to interpret. Daniel tried to recover. "Mom, this feels sudden. Maybe we should be involved in those decisions." "Maybe we should. You will be informed," Amanda said, "not involved." Sophia exhaled sharply. "Amanda, we're just trying to look out for you. It feels like you're shutting us out of decisions that affect the whole family." Amanda met her gaze evenly. A family protects one another. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't pressure. And it doesn't hide intentions behind polite words. That landed heavier than anything she'd said so far. Daniel stood abruptly. "We should go." Sophia shot up right after him, but she wasn't as composed. Her voice pitched higher, almost strained. "Fine. We'll wait to hear from your lawyer." They walked out without another word. Amanda remained seated, listening as the front door clicked shut. A moment later, she heard the rumble of their car engine start. Out of reflex, she crossed to the window and looked outside. Daniel was gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Sophia, however, was not quiet. Through the closed windows, Amanda could see her animated, arms waving, voice raised in sharp, frantic bursts. Daniel responded once, then slammed a hand against the dashboard. The argument intensified, their car rocking ever so slightly with each gesture. Two people terrified, exposed, scrambling for control now that their assumptions had slipped from their grasp. Amanda watched for a few long seconds before closing the curtain. There was no satisfaction in the moment, only certainty. The battle had officially begun, and she was ready. Scripps Memorial La Jolla was unusually quiet that afternoon. The rhythmic beeping of monitors echoed down the hallway, mingling with the scent of antiseptic and ocean air that drifted faintly through the windows. Amanda stepped into Teresa's room just as a nurse adjusted the foreline. Teresa looked fragile, but alert, her eyes clearer than they had been since the night of the party. When the nurse left, Teresa motioned for Amanda to sit closer. "Amanda!" she whispered, her voice rough but steady. "I remember." Amanda leaned forward. "Tell me whatever you can." Teresa closed her eyes for a moment, gathering pieces of memory like shards of glass. I was in the kitchen," she began slowly. "You were in the other room, talking to the caterer. I went to grab our drinks, and I saw her. Sophia. She was holding a tiny bottle, brown glass, like essential oils, but smaller. She unscrewed it with her thumb and poured something into your champagne." Amanda's breath caught, but she kept her expression calm. Teresa continued. She stirred it with the tip of her nail, like she didn't want to touch it. Then she looked at the flute, the one with the small chip on the rim. "Yours." That detail alone made Amanda's chest tighten. She had noticed the same thing that night. "I walked over," Teresa said, and she froze. Then she smiled at me, too fast, too sweet, and said something like, "This will make everything easier. The inheritance will work out sooner than expected." I think she realized she'd said too much because she handed me the glass right away. Teresa swallowed. "I don't remember anything after that." Amanda placed a hand gently over hers. "You remembered enough." As soon as she stepped out of the hospital, Amanda called Richard. Within minutes, he gave her a name. Harper Quinn, private investigator, ex-Air Force intelligence. Discreet, precise, very good at finding what others tried to hide. The next morning, Harper arrived at Amanda's home precisely at 9. She wore a gray blazer, dark jeans, and an expression of focused calm. After listening to Amanda recount everything Teresa had remembered, she pulled out a tablet and began outlining a plan. "I'll start with financial records," Harper said. "People who plan crimes this calculated usually leave money trails." It didn't take long. 3 days later, Harper returned with a full report. First file, life insurance. Harper slid the document across the table. 2 months ago, Sophia applied for a $750,000 life insurance policy on you. She listed herself as the secondary beneficiary, behind Daniel. Policies like this aren't illegal, but taking one out right before a medical incident? That's a massive red flag. Amanda felt a slow pulse of cold move through her. Second file, mortgage records. Harper tapped the next folder. Their house in Carmel Valley has been refinanced 3 times. They're in heavy debt, credit cards, personal loans, home repairs they never completed. They're drowning financially. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. How bad? Harper didn't sugarcoat it. About 780,000 total. The number matched the financial review Amanda had done on her own, but hearing it confirmed by an investigator made it heavier. More real. Third file, medical inquiry. Harper leaned forward. This one is the most telling. Sophia contacted a physician she knows, Dr. Patel, at a private clinic, asking about early signs of mild cognitive impairment in older adults. Not casually. She asked how to document them, what symptoms to watch for, how to present concerns to family court if necessary. Amanda felt her jaw tighten. She was preparing a conservatorship angle. Exactly, Harper said. This wasn't impulsive. Not a moment of anger. It was structured, planned, step by step. She clicked to the final page on her tablet. A timeline, Sophia's clinic inquiry, the insurance policy, the refinancing, the whispered comment at the party, the poisoning attempt. It formed a pattern, so clear it looked almost mathematical. Harper looked up. Amanda, everything points to a coordinated attempt to remove you. Financially, legally, possibly physically. Amanda didn't flinch. I know. And we're not done, Harper added. I'll keep digging. There's always more beneath the first layer. Amanda walked her to the door. The sun was setting over the water, streaking the sky in shades of copper and rose. As Harper stepped outside, Amanda remained standing in the doorway, watching the horizon darken. For the first time, the fear she'd been carrying seemed to settle into something sharper. Clarity, purpose, resolve. The truth was no longer scattered fragments. It was a complete picture. And now that Amanda had the whole story, she finally knew how to fight back. A week later, Amanda stood in her kitchen with the windows open, letting the cool La Jolla breeze move through the house. The scent of salt water, eucalyptus, and distant tides usually eased her nerves, but today her stillness had a purpose. Her plan, carefully shaped with Richard and Harper, was finally ready. It was time to let Daniel and Sophia believe they had one. She called them in the late morning. Her voice was steady, almost soft. I've been thinking, and you're right. Maybe moving into a retirement community would be best. I'd like your help finalizing the paperwork. There was a brief beat of silence on the other end. Surprise, then barely contained relief. Sophia's voice lifted immediately. Of course, Amanda. We'll be there tonight. We'll bring all the documents. Amanda ended the call with a polite thank you, then turned off the kitchen light and walked into the living room, where Detective Selena Navarro waited. Navarro, a seasoned investigator with San Diego PD's Financial and Elder Abuse Division, closed her notebook. They bought it. Yes, Amanda said. Sophia sounded eager. Navarro nodded. Good. My team will wait outside until your signal. The plan required precision. Amanda would invite Daniel and Sophia in, lead them to the dining table where the final document sat, and then excuse herself to grab the bank statements. That would be the cue for Navarro to enter with officers and serve the arrest warrant. Quiet, controlled, undeniable. By early evening, Amanda's home looked impeccably staged. The dining table was neatly arranged with folders, pens, and a stack of blank forms that looked convincingly bureaucratic. The security cameras were already recording. At 7:12 p.m., a black Lexus pulled into the driveway. Amanda watched from the entryway window as Daniel stepped out stiffly, adjusting his shirt sleeves, while Sophia walked ahead of him with a bright, victorious smile. She clutched a leather folder as though it were a trophy. Amanda opened the door before they knocked. Come in, she said warmly. Everything's ready. Sophia's eyes flicked around the house, calculating, triumphant. So you've made up your mind? I have, Amanda replied with controlled calm. Let's sit. They gathered around the dining table. Daniel tried to look helpful, arranging pens and straightening folders, but his knee bounced anxiously under the table. Sophia, however, radiated confidence. She slid her folder forward. We prepared the transition plan. Medical authority, financial oversight, conservatorship, just standard protections. Once we sign these, everything will be secure. Amanda's expression didn't change. She stood slowly. I just need to get the bank statements. One moment. She walked toward the hallway. That was the signal. The front door opened quietly behind her. Detective Navarro entered first, badge raised, followed by 4 uniformed officers. Their presence filled the room in a single breath. Daniel jerked upright. What's going on? Sophia blinked rapidly, her smile collapsing into confusion. Amanda? What is this? Navarro stepped forward. Sophia Ellington, you are under arrest for attempted poisoning, insurance fraud, and attempted elder financial exploitation. The room froze. Sophia's voice cracked. What? That's insane. I didn't. But Navarro had already opened her folder. Evidence includes toxicology results confirming oleander toxin in the champagne at your mother-in-law's retirement party. The flute with the highest concentration was the one she was meant to drink from. Amanda remained silent, standing near the hallway archway, steady as stone. Navarro continued. Additionally, we have documentation of a $750,000 life insurance policy, filed 2 months ago. You listed yourself as beneficiary. Sophia's face drained of color. No. That's not. Daniel signed off on that, not me. Daniel turned to her, eyes wide. What? I never. Sophia, what did you? Navarro raised a hand. We also recovered security footage from this residence. Footage that shows multiple attempts to enter the property, and a phone recording in which you discuss Amanda's future inheritance just hours before Teresa Delgado collapsed. Sophia's hands trembled as she backed away from the table. Daniel, help me. Say something. Do something. But Daniel looked shattered. The reality of it, every lie, every scheme, was unraveling too fast for him to control. I didn't know, he whispered, staring at his mother. Mom, I swear. Sophia said it was just paperwork. I didn't want. Navarro gestured to the officers. Cuff her. Sophia shrieked as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, her polished composure shattering into raw panic. She twisted, looked at Amanda, and screamed, You don't understand. You ruined everything. Amanda didn't respond. She simply watched her, expression calm, eyes steady. 2 officers escorted Sophia out of the house. Her pleas echoed down the walkway, dissolving into the night air of Bird Rock. Daniel remained standing, shoulders slumped, hands buried in his hair. When the door shut behind the officers, he turned toward Amanda, eyes red. Mom, he whispered, trembling, please forgive me. I didn't mean for any of this. I thought, I didn't know what she was planning. Amanda looked at him for a long, quiet moment. The moonlight from the window fell across her face, soft but unyielding. What she felt wasn't anger. It was recognition and closure. She spoke gently, her voice almost a whisper. Daniel, consequences always catch up, whether we see them coming or not. He broke down, collapsing into the chair, his sobs muffled against his hands. Amanda didn't move toward him. Justice had already arrived, quiet, devastating, and undeniable. 3 months passed, each one smoothing the sharp edges of what had once been chaos. Winter settled gently over La Jolla, softening the coastline with cool mornings and muted skies. Amanda welcomed the season the way she welcomed everything now, with steady breath, practiced calm, and a clarity she had earned the hard way. The legal process moved swiftly after Sophia's arrest. The evidence collected by Detective Navarro and Harper Quinn was overwhelming. Text messages, financial documents, the insurance policy, Teresa's testimony, toxicology results, and the damning security footage. The prosecutors in San Diego County built a case that left little room for argument. Sophia accepted a plea deal, 10 to 15 years in state prison, depending on parole reviews and behavioral evaluation. The charges included attempted poisoning, elder financial exploitation, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. No courtroom theatrics, no dramatic breakdowns, just a final, cold acknowledgement that her plan had unraveled entirely. Daniel's involvement proved more complicated. His signature appeared on supporting documents for the insurance claim, and Harper uncovered questionable transfers tied to his accounts. He insisted he didn't know the full extent of Sophia's intentions, and though investigators believed his ignorance was real, his negligence was not. He received 3 years of probation, mandatory financial monitoring, and a court-ordered elder abuse prevention course. His engineering firm placed him on unpaid leave pending completion. The day he pled guilty, he didn't look at his mother. Shame can make a person go blind. Amanda attended the hearing, but never spoke. She didn't need to. Justice was already doing its work. Life after the trial unfolded with an unexpected gentleness. Valerie, Daniel, and Sophia's daughter visited one afternoon with trembling hands and tearful eyes. She hadn't known what her parents were plotting. She only knew she had nearly lost both of them to the consequences. The guilt weighed on her like a tide she couldn't escape. Amanda held her, not with anger, but with something softer. "We rebuild from where we are," she told her, "not from where things broke." The two began speaking weekly after that, walks along Prospect Street, coffee at the quiet cafes overlooking the ocean. Valerie was 22, still figuring out her place in the world. Amanda made no promises, but she offered presence. Sometimes that was all a person needed to breathe again. Teresa, fully recovered, became a constant fixture in Amanda's life. What began as gratitude turned into companionship. They grocery shopped together, went to pottery classes on Coast Boulevard, and swapped recipes that neither of them followed very well. On quiet evenings, they sat in Amanda's backyard, admiring the garden now thriving with early spring blooms, lavender, rosemary, and the pale yellow roses Amanda had planted the week the trial ended. "You saved me," Teresa would sometimes say. Amanda always shook her head. "No, we saved each other." Bird Rock felt more peaceful than it had in years. With the security system still active but rarely needed, the house regained its warmth. Amanda spent her mornings tending to her garden, brushing dirt from her palms as the waves rolled against the cliffs below. In the afternoons, she walked the shoreline, letting the tide pull away whatever pieces of worry still clung to her. Evenings were slow, quiet, her favorite kind. She often brewed tea, opened a window, and listened to the neighborhood settle. The laughter of children, dogs barking at the surf, the whisper of palms brushing each other in the wind. Life unfolded in layers, gentle and steady. She didn't celebrate Sophia's sentence. She didn't rejoice in Daniel's probation. Justice, she had learned, didn't need applause. It just needed to be real. And in its realism, Amanda found something close to peace. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the Pacific, Amanda stepped outside with a small pair of pruning shears. The horizon glowed in gold and tangerine, the kind of light that made everything feel softer, almost suspended in time. She trimmed the roses slowly, inhaling their faint sweetness. A woman of 70, standing tall beside the garden she'd rebuilt, overlooking the ocean she'd loved her entire life. She had not fought with rage. She had not screamed or struck back. Her revenge had been quieter, precise, patient, built from truth and clarity. She won not by destroying others, but by refusing to be diminished. Amanda lifted her face toward the fading light, letting the ocean breeze move through her hair, carrying the last trace of bitterness away. Quiet victory, steady, unshakable, exactly the kind she had always deserved.